Hey campers, and welcome to the 4th episode of Camp Half-BloodCast.
When we last left off, Percy and Sally were sharing a peaceful time in Montauk until that is disturbed by a hurricane and Grover without his trousers.
Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 5, My Mother Teaches Me Bullfighting. Sally Jackson drives Percy and Grover towards Long Island in a hurricane. She seems to know where they're going, even though Percy doesn't understand how she can see a thing in that weather or what is happening. Sally and Grover both come clean, explaining that his pre-algebra teacher was indeed real, but they had to lie to him in fear that he would realise who he was and attract more monsters. This only confuses him more. Sally tells him they're going to the camp his father wanted him to go to, while Grover tells him that he is being haunted. All the while, loud bellows are being heard behind them. Percy starts to realise that maybe there's more to these three ladies with the yarn. Then they get hit by lightning and a monster in white underpants tries to kill Percy.
What a time. What a time.
Okay.
So we start with Percy, Grover, and Sally leaving the cabin in Montauk. Percy is trying to tell himself kind of that Grover is maybe wearing shaggy pants or something. He doesn't really understand what he's seeing because, yeah, he has hooves. They get in the car. He says that Sally is driving really fast and he doesn't really understand how she knows, like, can see anything or where they're going because the rain, like the hurricane at this point is actually very, very bad.
But yeah, that's when he learns that Grover and Sally have known of each other.
I know. I would like to do a point that I said this in the last episode and I was getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, I think I might have said that. I don't know.
I think it was me. I think it was me.
But yeah, so only now he realizes that they actually have known of each other before, and
because he's meant to. No, sorry,
but yeah,
because he was meant to watch him. But what's really cute about this is that Grover like insists, but we are real friends.
Yeah. He's a satyr. He's meant to be his protector and watch him. But yeah.
But he's friendly. His friend. We're real friends.
But yeah, that's where we get into the fact that Grover is a satyr, and then Percy's like, oh, like in Brunner's myths.
Yeah, he basically goes like that, and also actually, let's quick circle back. Percy is like, my best friend has donkey legs.
Yeah.
And Grover actually gets really offended by that. Then goes satyr myth, like Mr. Brunner. And then again, Grover is quite offended and he goes, was Mrs. Dodds a myth? The three old ladies at the stand, the lemonade stand or whatever it is.
And Percy's like, oh, so you admit that it was real? And then he's like, of course it was real.
I love that he's like fully like completely ignores that he's been called out. He's just like, you admit it was real, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Again, they mentioned the mist.
So if anyone remembers in episode 2 or chapter 2, when Percy walks in on Mr. Brunner and Grover having a conversation in his office, basically they mentioned something about a mist that Percy doesn't understand.
Yeah, he doesn't know what it is, but now Grover kind of explains that it's meant to confuse mortals, or like it was meant to confuse Percy as well, but he kind of saw through it.
Because what he says is that he's like, it's meant to confuse you because it was meant to help you attract less monsters.
The least you know, the least monsters you attract, actually.
And Percy has started to realize who he was. Percy, however, does not understand what he means.
It's so cute though.
Percy with his little identity crisis. He's like,
he's just like blocking it out.
I mean, like they're telling him, but he's just like, I don't know what this means.
He wants to not know what it means.
Then there's like this noise, like a bellowing noise, indicating that they're very much still being chased by whatever is on their tails.
Exactly. And Percy's like, oh, but who's after me?
And Sally pretty much tells him that they don't have time to explain, but they must get him to safety. And basically tells him that she's taking him to the summer camp that his father wanted him to go to.
And Percy's kind of surprised because she just told him that she doesn't want to take him there.
Yep. And then basically at the same time, Grover is like, oh, just the Lord of Death and all of his bloodthirstiest minions.
They're all after you. And Percy, he wonders why his mum would want to send him away. Well, she didn't want him to go, but realizes it's because of the three ladies with the yarn.
Yeah, basically at this point, Percy is like, oh, wait, the three ladies with the yarn, does that mean someone is going to die?
And Grover goes like, oh, yeah, that means that someone will die.
And then Percy's like, whoa, you said me. Like, you said you, as in me. Am I going to die?
And then Grover goes like, no, I said you as in someone.
He said, you said you. And basically, yeah, Percy all of a sudden, like, kind of understands why Grover has been so scared for him, like, on the bus. I mean, we did touch that he had felt the severity of the situation at that point, but it's only now he realizes both how much danger is actually in the air,
that is actually like life and death situation,
and that Mrs. Dodds had actually been a very dangerous situation. Like, it hits him very belatedly.
That she actually was trying to kill him.
That he could have died. And then lightning hits a car.
And it flips it basically off of the road.
Which is, again, another little throwback to the weather that has kind of been going insane. And we are like getting small little breadcrumbs for the chapter. But what's really funny here is that, like, obviously the car is like smashed off the side of the road and Grover is unconscious. And then Percy is like, I shook his furry hip thinking, no, even if you are the barnyard animal, you're my best friend and I don't want you to die.
But then Grover moans food, so Percy knows that he's actually safe.
It's just like such a perfect, I think, character moment for Percy, because he's like, just rolls with the punches.
Yeah, even if you're an animal, I want you to live.
Like, he's just getting all this information and then, like, he just takes it. He's just like, you know what? Sure.
But yeah, basically everyone's hurt, but they're all alive. And Sally tries making Percy go to the camp. She's like, go ahead. The boy's after you, so I'm going to stay behind, but you go.
And that's the thing. Basically, yeah, she says, you have to go. And Percy's like, no. And she goes, you have to. You have to go. And he's like, you're coming with me. And she says, I can't cross the border.
But then he's like, oh, that's bullshit. And goes like, oh, but you need to help me with Grover because I can't carry him on my own.
I know.
Yeah.
So she points out this massive pine tree, which is supposedly the border to the camp. And as Percy is insisting that she comes, he mentions that her eyes get as sad as when they watch the sea.
Yeah.
Which is devastating. Very devastating.
But yeah, so Percy realized that the Minotaur is chasing them. He's like going through all that thinking in his head, being like, oh, someone's holding like hands.
Yeah, he's like, they have a huge like furry blanket over their heads, but then he realizes
like that there's meaty arms dangling.
And that's actually not very possible. So he is introduced to the Minotaur. And Percy
identifies him as a Minotaur,
yeah, the Minotaur,
right?
he does, and he's wearing white underpants, by the way. I just like everyone to know.
Yeah.
Not like on this cover where he's wearing like Greek armor. No, he's wearing white underpants. But basically, Sally then says, I underestimated how badly they wanted you. And basically, yeah, gives him like a good old little fighting lesson.
I love that, how she's like, oh, okay, so you stay put. The Minotaur is really bad at turning fast, so if you just stay there and wait for it to charge, then you can jump away and it's not going to catch up with you.
Exactly. And Percy's like, how do you know? And she's like,
how does she know?
No, but she said she's been preparing in case, because she's been expecting something to show up. But also another thing is, like, when Percy is going the Minotaur, Sally says don't say his name because names have power. Very ominous and very mysterious.
And very important.
So basically, the bull is sniffing
Around a car, yeah.
Well, the car wreck, which is what your favorite point from the last episode was. So he says, not a scratch. And literally in the book, it says in cursive, not a scratch. And then Percy just goes, whoops.
Love that. But yeah, so Minotaur has a really good sense of smell, but he doesn't see or hear that well.
So, yeah, well, he gives up on the car. He can smell them and he charges. And basically Sally goes, we need to split up. And Percy doesn't really want to split up because he doesn't want to let go of his mom, but he does understand that this will probably need to be done. And he does what Sally suggests. He does stand his ground until the Minotaur is close enough, and then he dodges.
And it actually works. But
it really does.
But then, what's heartbreaking, Minotaur notices Sally, and she's charging at her again, so she's trying to use her own advice, but it doesn't work this time.
No, he doesn't fall for the same trick twice, so he grabs Sally, and then, really badly, he squeezes her and she turns into a golden light.
Yeah, and kind of disappears in a flash of it. And Minotaur goes for Grover, and that gets Percy really angry. He also thinks about how he just literally disappeared or killed his mother, potentially.
I know. And like there's also like I think a point where he's even like he wants to do something, but he's just frozen watching his mom die. And then, he gets so angry. And he's like, I can't let the Minotaur take Grover as well.
Yeah, and that's when he takes off his red jacket and tries to get Minotaur's attention.
Basically, it does a good old bullfighting gesture, waves the red jacket and goes, what does he say? Like, come here, mincemeat. No, what is
minced beef, I think. He calls him minced beef, and that's when Minotaur goes crazy and starts charging at him. And then he realizes that he's not going to be used the trick again because like Minotaur kind of like tries grabbing sides, sort of.
Exactly. So he instinctually, this is actually a very hard word to say, but he basically, without realizing how he knows how to do it, he uses the Minotaur's head as kind of like he kind of like jumps up him and uses the head as like a springboard situation, and ends up on the back of his neck, and is kind of wrestling this Minotaur a little bit. But the Minotaur is fighting against him.
Yeah. But then at some point he kind of holds on to one of his horns so strong and like has that sense of like anger going through him.
He remembers Sally being killed.
That he actually manages to rip out like one of his horns and then turn it into a knife. So when Minotaur charges at him again, he kind of instinctually as well uses the horn to
stab him. And it's like a lot of this is happening really fast, and like he is like very much like, Grover is still kind of moaning about food, and he's kind of like, I can't even tell him to stop because if I will bite my own tongue off, because the Minotaur is just kind of throwing him around. The Minotaur dies. It does die. It dissolves into a yellow sand.
Which is exactly what happened to Mrs. Dodds.
Exactly. So like Mrs. Dodds and him had like disappeared in the same way, whereas like Sally had disappeared in a golden light. So there's like a lot of like different things going on. I'm assuming it's still gonna smell like rotten eggs.
Yeah, probably.
So then our good friend Percy,
he manages to pick up Grover and then drag him towards the line and basically faints, like not towards the line, sorry. He drags him into the border. And
he's like crying and calling for his mom, and it like kills me every time I read it. I have a big fat pink sticker on that. Like I'm just like, it's like he doesn't understand what he's doing. Like
just for context, pink stickers are the moments when that makes
my emotion makes my emotion come out. But like I'm so like he's just crying for his mom, and then they reach this farmhouse.
Yeah, and he basically almost faints, or like almost loses conscience.
He passes out, but not before
he sees a blonde girl over
and
him.
a man
Yeah.
A mysterious man.
Who sounds familiar. I think he says.
Exactly. And then he passes out.
And that's it. That's the end of the chapter.
So first, I do think we should be looking a bit at the myths of this chapter.
Yeah. Minotaur.
Yeah, well, the Minotaur, for anyone who's read anything about the Minotaur,
You're so petty.
is the Minotaur is born to Pasiphae, who was basically the daughter of the Titan Helios, who used to be the Titan of the sun, and the nymph Percy. Basically, she gets married off to Minos. I think his name is Minos. Remember, not yesterday, but the last episode when I said names. Are hard. Basically, gets married to Minos, who was the king of Crete. And together they had, like, Ariadne, a few other kids. And basically, Minos has this, like, beautiful herd of bulls. And every year he sacrifices, the best one to Poseidon. But one year he does not. He kind of sacrifices a lesser bull. And, Poseidon does what the gods always do. He takes it out on the woman.
Poseidon, why would you do that?
Like, first of all, how dare you? He basically curses Pasiphae into falling in love with this bull. And the bull fathers the Minotaur. I don't want to think about birth. It's actually making me really uncomfortable.
Let's not.
But basically, what they then, Minos still kind of sees this as like a pride. Like, instead of making it like a bad thing, he actually very much makes this like a good thing. Basically, they build a labyrinth to contain it. But in like a previous time, or like not a previous time, but like before this, his beautiful son, Prince of Crete, has been murdered by the Athenians. And I think they go to war and they win. There's like a lot of variations on this myth, but he, as punishment, like they need to contain this Minotaur, and as punishment, they take Athenian kids, like 7 boys, 7 girls, and it's like, here is where it varies a bit. Like, it's like every year, every 7th year, every 9th year. It's like no one can really agree on that. It's basically the Hunger Games. They're sending these kids.
But none of them are coming alive.
No, they're getting fed to the Minotaur. This is how they contain him. Like, he's in the labyrinth. It's meant to be like hard for him to get out, but they need to feed him because either it's because they actually kind of like the Minotaur, or is it because they think it's like gonna contain it. It's a monster. It's a big scary weapon to have and hold over someone. And then what happens is the Prince of Athens, Theseus volunteers as tribute to go. And basically he is beautiful. And Minos's daughter, Ariadne, falls in love with him and gives him a thread, like a ball of thread, that he takes into the labyrinth so he can find his way back out. And he kills the Minotaur.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 more points. You have the fates.
So we talked about it in the second
episode.
There's still the old ladies who basically decide that, make sure that everyone follows their fate, and if they snip a cord in front of you, that means that someone's going to die.
God damn. Someone did die.
Yeah. Or did they? Someone disappeared in a flash of light.
Rip. And then we have Lord of Death, which is who Grover mentions is after Percy, and Lord of Death is Hades in the underworld. I think we have touched on Hades before.
He's one of the 3 brothers who basically command a part of the world, and his domain is the underworld.
Exactly. So that covers kind of the myths that we've been introduced to. I actually did not put any character highlights on this one. Well, I felt like I was like, I mean, maybe I should have mentioned that Grover became a satyr, but he didn't become. He was like a satyr.
He was always a satyr. But yeah, basically, so what I have as my character highlight is Percy being like, well, from the waist down, my best friend is a donkey. And then Grover goes really mad and he's like, I'm not a donkey, I'm a goat. I mean, imagine being called a donkey if you're actually a goat.
Donkeys are really hardworking animals. I think Grover actually needs to chill a little.
Yeah.
I also really love that point where they're both kind of arguing in like about who's gonna die, like someone. No, you said me, and he's like, no, someone.
Yeah.
And then Sally kind of like, I think this very much shows how their age, like they're still boys, like kids, and Sally is like, focus, like she snaps him out of it. She's like, come on. And I'm thinking they're just on the back seat being angels.
Yeah, and one of my other highlights is basically just Grover being Grover, and Percy is like, oh, he's after me, and we've mentioned that quote before, but he's like, oh, nobody much, just the Lord of the Dead and a few of his bloodthirsty minions.
Savage.
Yeah, this is really
savage. And also he does actually mention, now that I think of it, Mrs. Dudds as a kindly one again, which is another flashback to episode 2 of like the conversation in the office.
So what are your favorite moments then?
My favorite moments is Grover saying, I am your friend though. I love that. I think it really speaks to his character, because obviously that means he also knows Percy, that Percy immediately will think this is a setup. That like maybe Sally has kind of forced him to be his friend.
Or like just because the fact that he was nominated his protector, or like he's meant to do that, then that means that he wouldn't care for Percy.
Exactly. So. And much like it was your character highlight, I think I also got arguing like about who's gonna die as a favorite moment.
I love their arguments though, because they're never like aggressive. They never hold anything against each other. Like even when Percy was upset that Grover talked about him behind his back, he would snap at him, but it's just like a few seconds later they're good. And Percy's actually like, you know, he just always makes jokes out of things. I like that about him.
I know. And then I don't know, Sally being a monster. I'm just gonna read straight because this is how my notes sound. Sally being a monster pro, but also Sally who just loves her son.
That's your favorite moment?
Yeah. I just love how much Sally loves her son. What about you?
So my favorite moments actually, let me have a look at that. I like how the lightning sets up the fact that like Zeus is involved somewhat in like, even when there's Minotaur chasing them, they're like, oh, it's Hades that's after you, but there's the lightning.
Yeah,
it just feels
Zeus is clearly angry about something.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like, you know, it might not necessarily be Hades, but yeah.
I know, but does Zeus actually? I don't think he commands the monsters. I think Hades is the only one that possibly could.
He doesn't, but also why is there a lightning kind of?
Oh, he's just angry.
But yeah, I mean, I like that moment because it's like a put certain questions in your head.
Yeah, there is like they're being chased by monster, but also lightning. Exactly. And that's not Hades' domain.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, he definitely, like the lightning was aimed at them because it damaged Gabe's car.
Take that, Gabe. I hate you, you loser.
But yeah.
I don't think I actually like hate a lot of characters in this series, but I just freaking hate Gabe.
I mean, I don't think he's likable at all. So no,
Hades.
Wait, Gabe.
Oh, Gabe. He's
not.
Said Hades.
No,
I was like, what did Hades do? Hades hasn't even introduced yet.
He's not likable. That's what I said.
Oh yeah, no, Gabe is horrible.
But yeah, what I think it's the defining moment in this chapter though is when Sally disappears, because it kind of provides motivation for Percy's action in the future. Like it. Sorry, I thought you were disagreeing.
No, I'm sad. Anyway, keep going.
No, it's like this set up a lot of decisions that Percy would be likely to make in the future, I feel.
Yeah, mine. I agree with you. I think I was like myself, kind of going between Percy losing his mom, or like her eyes being as sad as when she looks at the ocean, because I do think some of those moments are very like defining for what is about to happen. However, I put the quote of like those, like, these weren't old ladies, those were the fates. Do you know what it means? The fact they appeared in front of you, they only do that when when someone is about to die. And I think I put it down because someone did die, but not necessarily what they think. And I do think it's like important to note that going forward, a lot of things is not necessarily what they seem, just because that's what the myth or like things are being said to you. I'm gonna leave it at that.
That's so vague, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to be spoiler free. They might not know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
we do. I do, however, think Kyron said that they were roasting marshmallows tonight. And personally, I love marshmallows.
Oh yeah.
And I want marshmallows. I want the big ones. Clarice might take them if I don't show up.
Yeah, let's go and get ourselves those marshmallows.
So
I don't like them. I'm vegan, but
so she's gonna have crackers. I'm gonna have marshmallows.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm like, thank you.
We're actually not seeing them, but not all of them.
I will be seeing you in my mind's eye.
Thank you, guys.